Let's GameSpot.
Hello and welcome to Let's GameSpot. I'm your host, Jeff Gerstmann. We're still walking in the almost winter wonderland that is the holiday release calendar, and so we've got another 3 solid new releases for you this week, including Beyond Good and Evil and Ratchet and Clank going Commando. Greg will stop by with his review of Prince of Persia, Bethany's got a review of Fire Emblem, and Ricardo will tell you why Dragon Force is one of the greatest games of all time. Also, we'll give you an extensive look into GameSpot's new one-stop site for all of your downloading needs, DLX. Then, watch us soar to the finish with the pair of 1080 California rolls known as the Let's GameSpot News Desk and Trivia Challenge, making this the only show to successfully perform the trick twice in one episode. You know us, we're flying high like the Yasutoko brothers here on Let's GameSpot. First up this week is the multi-platform release of Ubisoft's Beyond Good and Evil. We're talking a game for the Xbox, GameCube, and PlayStation 2, all from the guy who brought us Rayman. Check it out. It's the year 2435, and you are a young woman named Jade on the remote planet Hillis, which is currently under siege by an alien menace known as DOMS. What makes matters worse is that the government appears to be helping the aliens, and you set off to expose the conspiracy. Beyond Good and Evil somehow manages to blend stealth mechanics, action role-playing, platforming, and vehicle combat into one cohesive package. And you even get to take pictures. Helping you along the way is a pig named Paige and a government soldier who's gone AWOL. For more information on this game, like say a review or some developer interviews, check out the game space, and not just because green lipstick is crazy. Next up this week is Insomniac Games' Ratchet and Clank going Commando for the PlayStation 2. It's been a year and a week since the first Ratchet and Clank game was released, but the sequel is no quick rehash of the original. Or is it? Okay, it's not. Sorta. Listen up. Ratchet and Clank Going Commando picks up shortly after the end of the first game as the pair is rescued from a life of obscurity by the CEO of Megacorp, Abercrombie Fizzwidget, who hires them to get back his company's experimental proto-pet. The game features a new RPG-style experience system and 19 new weapons, 18 of which can be upgraded through earning experience points. For example, the lava gun spits out a stream of, well, lava. But when it's upgraded, it becomes a meteor gun and now fires, meteors. Some of the original game's weapons can be purchased from a vendor, and if you have a save file from the original game on your memory card, the old weapons are free. Clank is still a playable character and can now control even more robots in the game. Throw in more puzzles, mini-games, and new spherical worlds, and you've got a whole lot of game. For a full review of the text and video variety, check out the GameSpace. Finally this week is the multi-platform release of EA's Medal of Honor Rising Sun. So if you have an Xbox, GameCube, or PlayStation 2, plus a thirst for some Pacific Theater action, take a look. The latest entry in the Medal of Honor series gives you some of that familiar World War II first-person shooter action in a brand new setting, the Pacific Rim. You play as Corporal Joseph Griffin, and the game begins when you wake up on December 7th, 1941, on the USS California. That's right, you're in Pearl Harbor, and Japan has just launched its attack. After surviving the attack, the game will take you as far as the Philippines and Burma. Roughly 300 scripted sequences add to the game's cinematic feel, and the drama is turned up a notch by the capture of your brother Donnie. The PS2 version of the game also features multiplayer online support for up to 8 people. For more on the game, like a review and 3 interviews with veterans of World War II, check out the GameSpace. Joining me now in the studio is executive editor Greg Kasavin. Hey, Greg.
Hey. Earlier this week, you reviewed Ubisoft's Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. Now, what relation, if any, does this game have to the previous Prince of Persia games? It doesn't seem to have any obvious relation to the previous Prince of Persia games, really. It's definitely a spiritual successor. It's still a lot about running through these very dangerous levels and avoiding traps and fighting things with a scimitar, but it's not like a sequel. You don't need any previous experience with the games to enjoy it, and in fact, there's really just no expectation that you're some kind of existing fan of the series.
So, the story doesn't really pick up from a previous one, but what is the storyline in the game?
In the story, early on, you play as this prince who remains nameless, and early on in the game, he grabs this dagger from sort of an enemy palace, and using this dagger, he unwittingly unleashes what are called the Sands of Time, which turn all of his friends and
even his father, just about everybody into sand creatures, which are basically these sand zombies. So now he has to basically find the traitorous vizier who kind of put him up to it, and try to correct the mistake he made and find this big hourglass again and change back what he did. So to do that, he'll have to run through a series of dangerous environments and fight a bunch of sand zombies and that sort of thing. It's a big excuse to set up some pretty exciting kind of platform jumping and things like that.
So beyond like the platform jumping and things of that nature, you also have these kind of like special sand powers. How does that work?
Yeah, so the bad news about the Dagger of Time is that it causes all these horrible things to happen, but the good news is that it lets him, most importantly, avoid death. So should he kind of jump into a pit of spikes, for example, he can use this dagger in his dying breath to kind of rewind time back before the point at which he died and kind of try the jump again. He could also use it to freeze enemies and set up kind of a cool finishing move where they get slashed in half, and a few other things. So the dagger does give him some pretty important advantages that actually make the game pretty easy to play, because they mean that you won't get frustrated, saving and reloading your progress or anything like that. You could always just kind of try again.
So that stuff kind of sounds like Blinks. Is there any kind of similarity there to the Microsoft time-traveling cat?
The similarity, the argument could be made that there's a similarity. In the context of the game, it works really well, and it just makes for gameplay that doesn't get frustrating.
How's the combat in the game?
The combat, like pretty much everything in the game, looks really cool. It's a little bit shallow though, or rather, it's a little bit easy. It controls really well. It seems like a lot of games these days are getting away from like a lock-on targeting system to become like even more intuitive. You just point at an enemy and start hitting buttons, and you'll kind of naturally attack it. You could do these cool moves like vaulting over guys and slashing them in the back, and planting off of walls and doing a kind of Mortal Kombat Raiden style dives at them. So it's really good looking, but it's also just pretty simple.
The fighting sounds pretty simple. They don't make death very final or anything. Are the game's puzzles challenging, or what sort of puzzles do you even encounter?
Even the puzzles are relatively simple. It's really just kind of the animation and the really good control of the game that makes it stand out. You can do all these really cool moves like running along walls and planting your feet as you're running on walls to jump across to the other side. So there's a lot of like death-defying leaps and just really good-looking stuff like that. So it's just a really impressive game to watch.
Well, when you put it all together, what score did you give the game and why?
I gave the game an overall 9.0, calling it a superb game across all three platforms on which it's currently available. The Xbox version definitely looks best, so it can be recommended above the PS2 and GameCube versions, but they're all really impressive in their own right, and it's just a pretty amazing game to play through from start to finish. There's just no filler at all, and kind of each new area you walk into looks great, and there are no loading times between areas, things like that. It's just a very slick game.
Thanks for coming by, Greg.
Sure.
Now joining me in the studio is community manager Bethany Massimilla. Hi, Bethany.
Hey.
This week you reviewed the much anticipated Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance. This is a game brought to us by Intelligent Systems, the same people that work on Advance Wars. What can you tell us about the history of their Fire Emblem franchise?
There have been several other Fire Emblem games across the NES and the Super NES in Japan. This is actually the first Fire Emblem game that we've gotten to see. It's the 7th game in the series.
Cool. So what is the game all about? What's the storyline, for starters?
You start off as an apprentice tactician that's found injured on the plains by this young swordswoman. There turns out to be more to her past than was first realized, and you end up getting involved in quests to basically save your world against this menace, which I will not reveal. But yeah, it's pretty standard. Starts off innocently, but turns into something much greater.
Most games do. So what kind of game are we really dealing with here? It's kind of a strategy RPG sort of thing? Or?
Yep, it's a turn-based strategy title. You fight all your battles on a big map, enemy units, your units. You pick which units you use in battle, and then set off against your foes.
So to close it out, what score did you give the game and why?
I gave the game an 8.9. It's a really great game. It's more tied to its story, and it's more driven by its characters than, a game like Advance Wars. So it's not battle-based, it's more really centered around the story and around the characters and this war and what's happening to them. It's probably not for everyone, but for those people that can really dig into the story and, get caught up in it and appreciate that, they'll really love this game. It's a really good game.
Sounds cool. Thanks a lot, Bethany.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. And now, Senior Associate Editor Ricardo Torres is here to tell us all why Dragon Force is one of the greatest games of all time.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, I'm here to talk about Dragon Force, which is one of our greatest games of all time. Now, a lot of people probably didn't play Dragon Force because it was on the Saturn. When you look at most strategy games, you're talking very boring interface, lots of menus, 2D graphics, overhead. However, Dragon Force did something very different. It actually showed you the battles. You participated in battles with massive little armies, and it just got kind of crazy because you'd really never seen anything like that before. Because as I said, strategy games have usually been pretty boring, but Dragon Force kind of dressed that up with really impressive visuals and very simple gameplay. I played it well over 40 hours. There was all kinds of hidden stuff to discover, and it was a lot of fun. You never really got tired of it. It's really the most accessible strategy game to hit in a really long time. There's something there for casual gamers if they don't want to get too deep into it, but if you are kind of a hardcore strategy gamer, there's enough nuance there to, if you want to, you can find it. And finding a game that blends good graphics, accessible gameplay, and a really lengthy quest is really rare even today, and that is why Dragon Force is one of the greatest games of all time.
Thanks, Ricardo. For those of you who haven't heard, GameSpot recently launched a new site for downloading crazy stuff like patches, maps, movies, and more. But you don't have to take my word for it. Dun-dun-dun.
Hey, I'm Sam Parker. Just this last week, we launched DLX. It's GameSpot's new download site with lots of official patches and demos, all of the files that you'd expect at GameSpot, plus a ton of new unofficial files, that is maps, mods, skins, just lots of content created by gamers, for gamers. You get user-produced movies. You get movies from the companies showing you gameplay clips and trailers. There's all of this stuff out there, and we've brought it together in one place. All the comprehensiveness you expect from GameSpot with just a huge amount of depth. If you're a GameSpot Complete member, you get FTP access, and for everyone else with basic registration, you can use GameSpot's DLX plugin. It's fast, it's peer-to-peer, so the more people are downloading something, the faster it goes. Once you register as a basic user and you click on any file to download it, the DLX plugin will go ahead and install itself. So it's really not that hard. If you haven't tried tracking games on GameSpot, what are you waiting for? It really makes things easy to follow your favorite games, games that are coming up, games that are already out, and here's a new reason to use tracking. That is file subscriptions. So a game that you already have, like Battlefield 1942, you can just go ahead and subscribe to the game. New files for that game will automatically download right to your computer. You can do that for games, any game in the GameSpot database. So the best part about DLX? Well, it's free. It is a new way to get access to GameSpot's file library, and it includes just a whole bunch of new files. So try out GameSpot DLX.
For more information on DLX, go to dlx.gamespot.com and click on things. For information on gaming news as presented to you by Tim Tracy, wait for it. Okay, now!
Thanks, Jeff. LucasArts has announced that Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic has gone gold. The PC version of the popular Xbox game is on track for its scheduled November 18th ship date. Developed by BioWare, Knights of the Old Republic is set in the Star Wars universe some 4,000 years before the films. The game has won critical praise for its complex plot, which allowed players to choose between light and dark sides of the Force by performing acts of random kindness or cruelty. The new version of the game will feature some new story elements and gameplay reworked specifically for the PC. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is rated T for teen and will retail for $49.99. Rockstar Games has reportedly asked a federal judge in Greenville to dismiss the lawsuit filed by the parents of a man killed in a random shooting as he drove through the Great Smoky Mountains on June 25th. The two teenagers responsible for the shooting, which left a second person seriously wounded, claimed that they had decided to randomly shoot at vehicles on Interstate 40 after playing Grand Theft Auto 3. Rockstar has stated that the victims are trying to hold the company accountable based on the expressive content of the video game, and claims that such ideas and concepts, as well as the purported psychological effects of the shooters, are protected by the First Amendment's free speech clause. The Miami lawyer Jack Thompson, who is representing the victims, dismissed Rockstar's claims and is seeking to move the case back to state court for consideration under Tennessee's Consumer Protection Act. We'll have more on the story as it develops. Finally this week, Electronic Arts has announced that Need for Speed Underground has gone gold and will ship to stores on November 17th. The game features 20 cars from the likes of Nissan, Toyota, Honda, and the Mitsubishi that can be tuned and customized from aftermarket parts from no fewer than 52 different manufacturers. Need for Speed Underground will be released for the PC and all current generation console platforms. Both the PC and PlayStation 2 versions of the game feature online play that can be played against one another. For more information on Need for Speed Underground, which has been developed by EA's Canadian studio, check out our previous coverage of the game or look for the special feature on GameSpot's holiday DVD. That's all I got. Back to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Tim. But if you're out there doing the news, who's back in the studio running the show? What's that? Oh, seems like somebody took some audiovisual courses at the Old Bridge Junior Trade School. Here now, with your weekly trivia helping, it's the Let's GameSpot Trivia Robot.
Take 5, nerds. It's the Let's GameSpot Trivia Robot, taking advantage of the rule with an iron fist clause my agent put into my latest contract. After seeing the crapfest known as Neo and Smith's bogus journey, I've taken it upon myself to make sure our own little corner of media is as warm as a mom and pop general store, and not an icy media conglomeration of cookie-cutter Uber marts with acres of parking lots. Too metaphorical for your simile-craving brains? Look out, I'm on the ceiling. Question number 1, when was the attack on Pearl Harbor? Question number 2, how many years does Beyond Good and Evil take place before Zagger and Evans' smash hit in the year 2525? Question number 3, what is the name of my governor's character in Commando? Question number 4, what is the name of the Prince of Persia? Question number 5, which DLX mascot is your favorite? Remember when I said I was going to kill you last? I lied. Am I quoting Commando or issuing a warning? These are the questions that will keep you awake at night, like these 3 nerds who have been restlessly waiting to see their names listed as last week's winners. I'd say congratulations, but I just shrugged. You are welcome.
Send us your answers, be them wrong or right, along with your mailing address to triviarobot@gamespot.com by Monday, November 17th, and we'll randomly pick 3 of you to score some prizes. Sorry, there's nothing left on Ryan Davis's desk for us to send out, but Alex's is looking kind of full. Speaking of full, that smell is your brain overloaded with yet another episode of Let's GameSpot. We'll be back next week, but you can fill that time by hitting up the site for the latest news, previews, and reviews from the vast expanse of gaming. Until next week, I'm Jeff Gersman, reminding you that Let's GameSpot was filmed live in front of a studio audience.
Think about it.
If I was comparing, I like pancakes. If I had to compare a game to pancakes, I would be happy. I'd be like, it's games like pancakes. I was like, yeah.